The Great Hall of Nixara Prime was the most important place in the entire galaxy. 12 species had built it together over 1,000 years. The walls were made of living crystal that changed color with the mood of the room. Ambassador Daniel Harper walked through the massive doors with his head held high. He had served humanity for 30 years. He had seen wars. He had seen peace. He had seen the best and worst of alien species. But nothing had prepared him for what would happen today. Behind him walked his assistant, Lisa Monroe. She was young, barely 30, but she had sharp eyes and a sharper mind. She carried a small tablet that contained 300 years of human service to the Galactic Council. The hall was full. Representatives from all 12 member species sat in their designated areas. The Sorenthi, beings made of living crystal, occupied the highest seats. They considered themselves the most evolved species in the galaxy. Their leader, High Chancellor Valeth, sat on a throne that floated above everyone else. The Kathrani were next. They looked like giant insects, with hard shells and multiple arms. Their representative, Zorvath, was known for his cruel humor and his hatred of humans. He clicked his mandibles as Daniel entered, a sound that meant amusement. The Luminari were beings of pure light and energy. They had no physical bodies. Aethon, their speaker, floated near the ceiling, like a small sun. The Veloxi were reptilian creatures with scales that changed color. The Morthani were tall and thin, with skin like tree bark. The Jalvex were aquatic beings who attended meetings in special water tanks. 6 other species filled the remaining seats, all of them older than humanity, all of them looking down at the human ambassador. Daniel stopped in the center of the hall. This was where petitioners stood. This was where species begged for favors. He hated this spot. The council recognizes the human delegation, Valeth announced. Her voice was like wind chimes. Beautiful but cold. You may speak. You may speak. Daniel cleared his throat. High Chancellor, honored representatives, humanity comes before you today with a simple request. For 300 years, we have served this council faithfully. We have built your stations. We have fought your wars. We have shared our technology freely. We have asked for nothing in return. He paused, looking around the room. Most of the representatives would not meet his eyes. Today, we ask to be recognized as full members of this council. We ask for elevated status. We ask for a voice in decisions that affect our people and our future. The silence that followed was heavy. Daniel could hear his own heartbeat. Then Zorvath laughed. It was an ugly sound, like rocks grinding together. The humans want to sit with us, he said to the assembly. How charming. Several other representatives joined his laughter. Daniel felt Lisa tense behind him, but he did not move. High Chancellor Valeth raised a crystalline hand, and the laughter stopped. She looked at Daniel with eyes that held no warmth. Ambassador Harper, the Council has considered your petition carefully. We acknowledge that humans have been useful to our alliance. Your species works hard. You follow instructions well. You are adequate engineers and acceptable soldiers. She paused, and Daniel knew what was coming. However, the Council has decided to deny your request. Humans lack the evolutionary refinement necessary for leadership positions. Your species is too young, too emotional, too unpredictable. You remain a provisional member, as you have been since your admission 3 centuries ago. Daniel felt something cold settle in his chest. It was not anger. It was something deeper, something quieter. Perhaps in another 1,000 years, Zorvath added, his mandibles clicking with pleasure, the humans will mature enough to sit at the adult table. More laughter filled the hall. Even some of the species who had always been kind to humanity joined in. The Luminari flickered with amusement. The Veloxi changed colors in patterns that meant mockery. Daniel stood perfectly still. He did not argue. He did not protest. He did not raise his voice or make demands. He simply nodded once, turned around, and walked out of the hall. Lisa followed him, her face red with controlled anger. "Sir, we can appeal. We can present more evidence. We can show them the records of everything we have done for them." Daniel said nothing until they reached their shuttle. Only when the doors closed did he speak. "Send the signal." Lisa froze. "Send it now." She typed a short message into her tablet. 3 words. Just 3 words that would change everything. "Begin Operation Silence." Across the galaxy, humans received the message. Engineers on space stations stopped their work and packed their bags. Soldiers on distant battlefields called for evacuation ships. Doctors in alien hospitals finished their current patients and then walked out. Teachers, builders, mechanics, pilots, diplomats, all of them received the same message. Within 12 hours, human ships began appearing at every station, every colony, every outpost where humans worked. They came quietly, without announcement. They loaded personnel and equipment. They erased databases and removed technology that humans had installed. Within 48 hours, the evacuation was complete. Within 72 hours, every single human had vanished from Council space. They left no message. They made no declaration of war. They simply disappeared. High Chancellor Valeth did not notice for 3 days. She was busy with other matters, important matters that did not involve the primitive humans. When her assistant finally brought the news, she did not understand. "What do you mean they are gone?" she asked. "All of them, High Chancellor. Every human in Council space has departed. Their embassy on Nexara Prime is empty. Their workers have abandoned their posts. Their ships have crossed into their home territory and activated defensive barriers we did not know they possessed." Valeth felt the first hint of unease. "Have they declared anything? Made any demands?" "Nothing, High Chancellor." Complete silence. She turned to look out her window at the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the light of Nexara, humanity was waiting. For what? She did not know. But for the first time in her long life, Valeth felt afraid. In the weeks that followed, the Council tried to contact humanity. They sent messages, diplomatic envoys, even military scouts. All were turned away at the border by weapons systems the Council had 3 months past after humanity disappeared. At first, the Council celebrated. The annoying humans were finally gone. No more petitions. No more requests for equal treatment. No more complaints about unfair policies. High Chancellor Valeth held a grand feast to mark what she called the beginning of a new era. The crystal halls of Nexara Prime glowed bright gold as representatives ate and drank and congratulated themselves. "Good riddance," Zorvath declared, raising a glass filled with dark liquid. "We never needed them anyway." The other representatives cheered. Aethon flickered with bright colors. The Veloxi changed their scales to celebration patterns. Everyone was happy. Everyone was wrong. The first problem appeared 2 weeks after the feast. A communications relay near the Kethrani border stopped working. It was a small station, barely worth noticing, but it handled millions of messages every day. "Send a repair team," Valeth ordered. Her assistant looked uncomfortable. "High Chancellor, the relay was maintained by human engineers. We do not have anyone with the knowledge to repair it." Valeth frowned. "Then find someone. How difficult can it be?" Very difficult, as it turned out. The Kethrani sent their best technicians. They stared at the human-designed systems and could not understand them. The repair took 3 weeks. By then, 5 more relays had failed. The problem spread like a disease. A water purification plant on Veloxi Prime broke down. The human-designed filters needed replacement. But no one knew how to build new ones. 12 million Veloxi had to be evacuated before clean water could be restored. A mining operation in the outer territories collapsed. Human safety systems had prevented disasters for decades. Without regular maintenance, those systems failed. 4,000 Morthani workers died. Trade ships began disappearing in regions that humans had mapped and secured. Pirates, always held back by human patrol routes, returned in force. The Jalvex lost an entire merchant fleet in a single week. Valeth called an emergency council session. The celebration mood was gone. Now, the crystal walls glowed angry red. "This is unacceptable," she announced. "How can we be so dependent on one species?" No one had an answer. Admiral Kevin Brooks had planned Operation Silence for 40 years. He knew exactly what would happen. He knew that the Council had built their entire civilization on human labor without ever realizing it. On Earth, he stood before a massive display screen that showed every failing system in Council space. Red dots appeared faster every day. "The Serenthi defense grid is operating at 30%, reported Captain Samuel Grant. "Their shield generators are failing without human calibration. The Kathrani food distribution network has collapsed in 3 sectors," added Lisa Munro. "They are facing shortages on 12 colony worlds. The Luminari energy collectors are overloading," said Commander Ryan Cole. "They never learned how to balance the intake systems we designed for them." Kevin nodded slowly. He felt no pleasure in their suffering. That was not the point. "Continue monitoring," he ordered, "but do not respond to any communication." President Catherine Wells watched from her office on Geneva Station, humanity's hidden capital. She was a small woman, with gray hair and tired eyes. She had not wanted this. No human leader had wanted this. But the Council had left them no choice. "How long do we wait?" she asked Admiral Brooks. "Until they understand. Until they truly understand." On Nexera Prime, understanding came slowly and painfully. The Serenthi discovered that their beautiful crystal cities were built on foundations designed by human architects. Without maintenance, cracks began appearing in structures that had stood for centuries. The Kathrani realized that their mighty warships used navigation systems created by human programmers. Without updates, those systems began making errors. 3 ships flew into asteroid fields. 2 were destroyed. The Veloxi learned that their medical technology depended on human research. Diseases that had been cured began returning. Hospitals overflowed with patients. Zorvath demanded action. "We must force them to return," he shouted at the Council. "Send warships. Threaten them. They are just humans. They will surrender." "With what warships?" asked a Morthani representative. "Half our fleet cannot navigate properly. Our weapons systems are malfunctioning. Our shields are failing." 1. "The humans designed all of it," Aethon said quietly. "We let them build everything for us, because they were willing to do the work. We never thought to learn how it functioned." Valeth sat in silence. She remembered every cruel word she had spoken. She remembered the laughter in the hall when Daniel Harper walked out. She remembered thinking that humans did not matter. Now she understood how wrong she had been. The Council sent diplomats to the human border. They were turned away by massive ships bristling with weapons no one had ever seen before. "This is Ambassador Kelleth of the Serenthi," one diplomat transmitted. "We wish to open negotiations." One. A human voice responded, cold and professional. "No negotiations at this time. Please leave human space. But we need your help. Our systems are failing. Perhaps in another 1,000 years, you will mature enough to handle your own problems." The exact words Zorvath had spoken. The humans were throwing them back in the Council's face. Kelleth returned to Nexera Prime with nothing. Valeth listened to his report and felt shame for the first time in her existence. "What do we do now?" she asked her advisors. No one had an answer. Weeks passed. The situation grew worse. Energy shortages spread across multiple systems. Food production dropped dramatically. Communication networks failed entirely in some regions. And then the scouts returned with news that made everything else seem small. A young Kathrani officer burst into the council chamber, breaking all protocol. "High Chancellor, our deep space sensors have detected something. Something coming from outside the galaxy. Valeth felt ice form in her crystal body. What is it? The officer's voice trembled. Millions of objects. Moving in formation. They match the descriptions in the ancient records. The ones from 4,000 years ago. The room fell silent. Every representative knew those records. Every species had heard the stories passed down through generations. The void harvest had returned. The ancient machine intelligence that consumed all life. The enemy that had destroyed the architects. The most powerful civilization in galactic history. The darkness that came every 4,000 years to feed. Valeth looked around the chamber at the terrified faces of her fellow representatives. Their fleets were crippled. Their defenses were failing. Their infrastructure was collapsing, and the only species that could help them was gone. Contact the humans, she ordered, her voice barely a whisper. Beg if you must, but make them listen. The messenger ships launched within the hour. They carried the most important message in galactic history. On Earth, President Catherine Wells read the message and then looked at her advisors. The void harvest, she said. George warned them 20 years ago. They laughed at him, Admiral Brooks reminded her. The ancient records described the void harvest in simple terms. They were machines. They came from the space between galaxies. They consumed all biological life. They could not be reasoned with. They could not be stopped. 4,000 years ago, the architects had tried everything. They were the most advanced civilization in galactic history. They had built wonders that still existed today. They had technology that modern species could not understand. And they had been destroyed completely. The only reason any life remained in the galaxy was because the architects had sacrificed themselves. They had created a weapon that damaged the Void Harvest fleet so badly, it needed 4,000 years to repair itself. Now the machines had healed. Now they were coming back. High Chancellor Valeth stared at the sensor readings and felt true fear for the first time in her 300-year life. The approaching fleet contained millions of vessels. Some were small, barely larger than fighters. Others were massive, bigger than moons. All of them were coming to feed. How long until they reach Council space? She asked. General Morath of the Kethrani military checked his data. At their current speed, approximately 4 months. Their leading elements will reach our outer colonies in 3 months. Can we evacuate those colonies? Morath shook his head. His mandibles hung low, a sign of despair. Our transport capacity has been reduced by 60% since the humans left. We cannot move that many people in time. Valeth turned to the other representatives. What forces can we gather? Loth. The answers came slowly, each one more depressing than the last. The Veloxi had lost most of their fleet to the reactor failures. Their remaining ships were old and poorly maintained. They could contribute perhaps 200 vessels. The Kethrani had more ships, but their navigation systems were failing. Half their fleet could not travel in formation without colliding with each other. They could offer 500 ships that actually worked. The Serenthi had powerful weapons, but their shield generators were offline. Their ships would be destroyed in the first exchange of fire. The Luminari had energy weapons beyond anything else in the galaxy. But they needed human-designed focusing crystals to aim them properly. Without those crystals, they could barely hit a planet, let alone a moving target. When the counting was done, the Council could gather perhaps 2,000 functional warships. The Void Harvest fleet contained over 50 million. We are dead, Zorvath said flatly. There is no hope. Valeth did not argue. She could not. On Earth, Admiral Kevin Brooks watched the same sensor data. The humans had detected the Void Harvest months before the Council did. They had better sensors, better equipment, better everything. Status report, President Catherine Wells ordered. Kevin pulled up a display showing Earth's defenses. The home system is fully protected. Our shield network can withstand anything the harvest throws at us. Our fleet numbers 12,000 combat-ready vessels, all equipped with zero-point energy weapons. And the Council? Kevin's face hardened. They will be destroyed. Completely. Every species, every colony, every station. The Void Harvest does not take prisoners. They process biological matter into fuel for their machines. Catherine closed her eyes. She thought about the billions of innocent beings in council space. Children who had never hurt anyone. Families who had no idea their leaders had doomed them. Ambassador Harper, she said. Your assessment? Daniel Harper stepped forward. He had aged in the months since his humiliation on Nexara Prime, but his eyes were clear, and his voice was steady. The council species are not evil, Madam President. They are arrogant and foolish. But they do not deserve extinction. Their leaders insulted us. Their common people did nothing wrong. You are suggesting we help them? I am suggesting we be who we are. Catherine nodded slowly. Admiral Brooks, if we intervene, what are our chances? Kevin considered the question carefully. With surprise on our side, we can damage the Void Harvest significantly. Our weapons are more advanced than anything they have encountered, but we would take heavy losses, perhaps 40% of our fleet, and if we do nothing, we survive. The Council dies, and in another 4,000 years, the harvest comes back stronger, having consumed half a galaxy worth of biomass. Our descendants face an enemy we could have defeated today. The room fell silent. Everyone understood the choice. Fight now, lose ships and lives, but save the galaxy. Or hide, stay safe, and doom future generations to a worse fight. Catherine looked at her advisors. She saw fear in some eyes, determination in others. She saw anger at the species who had treated humanity so poorly. But she also saw something else. Something uniquely human. Compassion. Prepare the fleet, she ordered. We move in 2 days. Kevin saluted. What about the council? Do we tell them we are coming? No. Let them send their diplomats first. Let them ask for help properly. Let them learn what it means to depend on the mercy of others. The meeting ended. Officers hurried to their stations. Ships began powering up across the solar system. Humanity was going to war. On Nexara Prime, High Chancellor Valeth made a decision that her pride had prevented for months. She would go herself to beg for human help. Prepare my personal vessel, she ordered. I will lead the diplomatic mission. Her advisors protested. It was dangerous. It was beneath her dignity. The humans might refuse to even see her. I humiliated their ambassador in front of the entire council, Valeth said. I denied them with my own voice. If anyone should beg, it should be me. The ship launched within hours. It carried Valeth, representatives from all 12 council species, and a message that contained something the council had never offered before, a genuine apology. The journey to human space took 3 weeks. Every day, the Void Harvest grew closer. Every day, more systems reported the approaching darkness. When Valeth's ship reached the human border, it was met by a single vessel. The ship was called the Resolute, and it was commanded by Captain Samuel Grant. Unknown vessel, you are approaching human territory. Samuel's voice came through the speakers. Identify yourself and state your purpose. Valeth stepped up to the communication panel. Her crystal form dimmed with shame as she spoke. This is High Chancellor Valeth of the Galactic Council. I come to request audience with your leaders. The Void Harvest approaches. Without your assistance, our civilizations will be destroyed. There was a long pause. Valeth could imagine the humans discussing her request, probably laughing at her the way she had laughed at them. You denied humanity a voice for 3 centuries, Samuel finally replied. You called us primitive, unrefined. You said we lacked evolutionary refinement. You laughed at our ambassador in front of the entire galaxy. I know. Valeth's voice cracked. I know. What I did. What we did. There are no excuses. I can only say that I was wrong. We were all wrong. Another pause. Longer this time. Why should we help you? Valeth thought about the question. She thought about power and pride and all the things that had seemed so important before. "You should not," she admitted. "We do not deserve your help. But I am asking anyway. Not for myself. Not for the Council. For the billions of innocent beings who will die if you refuse. They did not laugh at your ambassador. They did not deny your petition. They are just people trying to live their lives." The silence stretched on. Valeth waited, her crystal heart beating faster than it ever had before. The journey through human space took 2 days. Captain Samuel Grant led the Council delegation along a carefully planned route that showed them exactly what humanity had become. High Chancellor Valeth pressed her crystalline face against the viewing window and could not believe what she saw. Space stations the size of small moons floated in perfect formation. Warships moved in patterns so precise they looked like a dance. Defense platforms surrounded every planet, every moon, every asteroid of value. And the numbers. The sheer numbers of vessels. "How many ships do you have?" she asked Captain Grant through the communication channel. "Enough," was his only reply. Zorvath, sitting in the back of the diplomatic vessel, clicked his mandibles nervously. "They hid this from us. For 300 years, they pretended to be weak. We saw what we wanted to see," Valeth replied quietly. "They let us believe what made us comfortable." The Luminari representative, Aethon, flickered with confused light. "Why? Why pretend to be less than you are?" No human answered. The question hung in the air, unanswered and uncomfortable. The delegation finally arrived at Geneva Station, humanity's hidden capital. It was massive, a structure that dwarfed anything the Council had ever built. Lights covered its surface like stars on a clear night. As their ship docked, Valeth noticed something that made her crystal body ring with surprise. At the center of the station, a massive device pulsed with energy she had never seen before. "That is impossible," Aethon whispered. "They have achieved zero-point energy extraction." "We theorized it could not be done." "We theorized wrong," said a Veloxi scientist who had come along as an advisor. "Look at the power readings. They have more energy in this one station than our entire civilization produces in a year." The Council representatives stepped off their ship and onto the station's deck. Human guards stood at attention, their faces blank and professional. They wore armor that looked light but somehow felt heavier than anything the Council manufactured. A woman waited for them at the end of the arrival hall. She was short and gray-haired, with tired eyes that held centuries of patience. Behind her stood Admiral Kevin Brooks and a dozen other officials. "Welcome to Geneva Station," President Catherine Wells said. Her tone was neutral, neither warm nor cold. "I am the President of the Human Union. We have been expecting you." Valeth stepped forward and did something no High Chancellor had done in 1,000 years. She bowed. Deeply, completely. "President Wells," she said, "I come to beg for your help." The word hung in the air. Beg. The leader of the Galactic Council, bowing before a species she had once mocked as primitive. Catherine studied the alien before her. She saw the shame in those crystal eyes. She saw the desperation. She saw something else too, something that might have been genuine remorse. "Follow me," she said. "We have much to discuss." The negotiations took place in a circular room with no head table. Everyone sat as equals, even though everyone knew they were not equals at all. Valeth presented the Council's situation honestly. Their fleets were crippled. Their defenses were failing. The void harvest would reach their outer colonies in less than 3 months. Without help, extinction was certain. "We offer everything," Valeth said. "Trade rights, technology sharing, full membership status for humanity. Whatever you want." Catherine listened without expression. When Valeth finished, she spoke. "We do not want your membership status." The Council representatives looked confused. "Then, what do you want?" "Change." Admiral Kevin Brooks stood and activated a display showing the approaching Void Harvest fleet. Millions of red dots moved slowly, but steadily toward Council space. For 300 years, humanity served the Council faithfully, he said. We built your infrastructure. We fought your wars. We asked only to be treated as equals. You refused. You laughed. You called us primitive children. His voice hardened. We are not children. We are not primitive. We are human. And we have spent those 300 years preparing for the day when you would need us more than we needed you. Zorvath made an angry sound. You planned this? You let our people suffer while you waited? Daniel Harper, who had been silent until now, answered. We did not cause your suffering. We simply stopped preventing it. Everything that went wrong after we left was because you never learned to do things for yourselves. You relied on us completely and never even noticed. The truth of his words hurt more than any weapon could. Catherine took control of the conversation again. Our terms are simple. We will not rejoin the Council as a member. Instead, we will become protectors, a separate entity with authority to intervene in any security matter. Human engineers will train your species. Human ships will patrol your borders. And most importantly, no species will ever again be denied advancement based on evolutionary prejudice. You want to rule us, Zorvath accused. No, we want to protect you. There is a difference. Catherine's eyes were hard. You never understood that difference. Perhaps now you will learn. Valeth looked at the other representatives. She saw fear in their eyes. Fear of the void harvest. Fear of becoming servants to humanity. Fear of losing everything they had built. But she also saw the alternative. Extinction. Complete and total. The void harvest will reach our outer colonies in 11 weeks, Kevin said. Without us, your entire civilization will be destroyed within 3 months after that. Your children will be processed into fuel. Your cities will be stripped of resources. Everything you have ever created will be erased from history. We go BB. We. He paused to let the words sink in. Or you can accept our terms. Live under our protection. Learn from us. Grow with us. And maybe, in time, become true partners, instead of masters, pretending to be civilized. The silence stretched on. Each representative considered what they had heard. Pride screamed at them to refuse. Survival demanded they accept. Zorvath spoke first. The Kethrani accept. Aethon flickered. The Luminari accept. One by one, each species announced their agreement. When only Valeth remained, she stood slowly from her seat. 300 years ago, humans came to us as refugees. Their homeworld was dying, and they needed help. We gave them a place in our galaxy, but we never gave them respect. We used them. We mocked them. We denied them. Her crystal body glowed with soft light. I was wrong. The Council was wrong. We called you primitive, but you were simply quiet. We called you weak, but you were simply patient. We called you children, but you were the only ones who ever planned for tomorrow. She bowed again, lower than before. The first Void Harvest scouts appeared at the edge of Council space, exactly when the humans had predicted. They were small vessels, barely bigger than fighters, but they carried sensors that could scan entire star systems in minutes. Admiral Kevin Brooks watched them from the command deck of the Dauntless, humanity's largest warship. The vessel was 3 kilometers long and bristled with weapons that had never been used in real combat. Today that would change. Enemy scouts detected in Sector 7, reported Commander Ryan Cole. 17 vessels, spread across a 2-light-year radius. Are they alone? Negative. Long-range sensors show the main fleet approximately 4 hours behind them. Kevin nodded. The scouts were doing exactly what scouts did. Looking. Counting. Reporting back to the main force. Let them see our forward positions only, he ordered. Keep the reserve fleet hidden behind the gas giant. Understood, Admiral. The plan was simple in concept, but complex in execution. Humanity had spent 3 centuries preparing for this moment. They knew they could not defeat the Void Harvest in direct combat. The machine fleet was too large, too powerful, too numerous. But they could hurt it. They could damage it badly enough that the rest of the galaxy might survive. On board the Sorrenthi flagship Crystal Dawn, High Chancellor Valeth watched the same sensor readings. She stood beside Captain Amanda Price, a human officer assigned to coordinate the alien contingent. "Your people seem calm," Valeth observed. Amanda shrugged. "We have been preparing for this battle longer than most council species have existed. Humans do not waste time on worry. How can you not worry? Those machines destroyed the architects. They were far more advanced than any of us. The architects fought alone. We fight together." Amanda pointed at the tactical display. "See those positions? Human ships in the center, council ships on the flanks. We take the hardest hit. You clean up whatever gets through." Valeth studied the formation. "You are using yourselves as shields. We have better shields. Makes sense to put them in front." It was such a simple statement. So practical. So completely without ego or pride. The humans were not trying to prove anything. They were simply doing what worked best. Valeth felt small in a way she had never felt before. The main Void Harvest fleet arrived exactly 4 hours later. It emerged from jump space like a swarm of dark insects, filling the sensor screens with red dots that seemed endless. "Contact," Ryan reported, his voice steady despite what he was seeing. 53 million vessels. Correction, 60 million. They are still arriving." Kevin took a deep breath. "All ships. This is Admiral Brooks. The enemy is here. Remember your training. Remember your people. Remember what we are fighting for." He paused, looking at the tactical display one more time. "Today, we show the galaxy what humanity can do. All ships. Engage." The first wave of human vessels surged forward. They moved in perfect formation, a wall of metal and energy that glowed bright against the darkness of space. The Void Harvest responded immediately. Millions of beams of dark energy lanced out, striking shields, tearing through armor, destroying ships. In the first 30 seconds, 200 human vessels were gone. But those vessels did not die alone. Human weapons were unlike anything the machines had encountered. Zero-point energy cannons fired blasts that ignored shields completely. Quantum torpedoes exploded inside enemy vessels, tearing them apart from within. Gravity bombs created miniature black holes that swallowed dozens of machine ships at once. For every human vessel destroyed, 1,000 Void Harvest ships fell. Captain Samuel Grant commanded the Resolute from the center of the line. His ship shook with every impact, but his voice remained calm. "Forward batteries, focus fire on that carrier. Missile teams, target the escorts. All crew, brace for impact." A massive Void Harvest vessel, larger than a small moon, fired directly at the Resolute. The beam was powerful enough to destroy a planet. The human shields held. Barely. But they held. "Return fire," Samuel ordered. The Resolute's main cannon charged for 3 seconds, then released a blast of pure energy that punched straight through the enemy carrier's armor. The machine vessel exploded in a fireball visible across the entire sector. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Human ships died, but they took enemies with them at ratios that seemed impossible. The Void Harvest had expected easy prey. They found something very different. On the flanks, Council ships engaged the enemy units that slipped past the human line. The Kethrani fought with desperate courage, their earlier cowardice forgotten in the heat of battle. Zorvoth himself commanded the lead vessel, driving straight into enemy formations with complete disregard for his own safety. "For the fallen," he transmitted as his ship rammed a Void Harvest cruiser. "For all the fallen." The Luminari used their energy weapons to create barriers of pure light that blocked enemy fire. Aethon coordinated the defense, flickering between positions faster than the machines could track. The Veloxi provided medical support, their ships darting between damaged vessels to evacuate wounded crew. They saved thousands of lives that day. Even the Serenthi fought, their crystal ships fragile, but their determination unbreakable. Valith watched her people die and kept fighting anyway. The battle raged for 6 hours. 6 hours of constant combat. 6 hours of explosions and death and heroism that would be remembered forever. 6 hours that changed the galaxy. When the sun rose over Nexera Prime, the Void Harvest fleet had lost 12 billion vessels. The machines were not destroyed, but they were damaged. Badly damaged. The human fleet had lost 42% of its ships, 3,000 vessels, crewed by brave men and women who would never see their homes again. The Council had lost 60% of their remaining fleet. But they had fought. They had stood beside humanity and refused to run. Admiral Kevin Brooks surveyed the aftermath from the Dauntless Bridge. His ship was damaged, leaking atmosphere from a dozen holes. His crew was exhausted. His friends were dead, but they had won. This day, at least, they had won. Status report, he said quietly. Enemy fleet is withdrawing, Ryan reported. They are moving toward the outer rim. Our scouts estimate they will need at least 2 weeks to regroup. And our forces? 7,000 human vessels remain combat capable. Council forces report approximately 800 ships operational. Kevin closed his eyes. So many lost. So many families who would receive terrible news in the coming days. But the galaxy was still alive. The people they had fought to protect were still breathing. He opened a channel to all surviving ships. This is Admiral Brooks. Today we proved something that the Void Harvest never expected. We proved that life fights back. We proved that together, we are stronger than any machine ever built. Rest now. Repair your ships. Honor your fallen. Because in 2 weeks, we finish what we started today. The channel closed. Silence fell over the fleet. On board a damaged transport vessel, Lisa Monroe sat with wounded soldiers from 6 different species. A Kathrani warrior held hands with a human medic. A Luminari provided light for surgeons working on a Veloxy patient. The barriers that had divided them for centuries were gone. They were all just survivors now. All just people who had faced death together and lived. Lisa looked out the window at the debris field that had once been the front line. Somewhere, the final battle came 11 days after the first. The Void Harvest had regrouped, repaired what they could, and launched their last assault. They knew that if they failed here, they would not have the strength to try again for another 4,000 years. Admiral Kevin Brooks stood on the bridge of the Dauntless, watching the enemy fleet approach. His ship had been repaired, but scars remained. Good scars. They reminded him of what was at stake. All ships report ready, Commander Ryan Cole announced. Human fleet at 60% strength. Council forces at 40%. Kevin nodded. They had fewer ships than before. But they also had something else. Something that could not be measured in numbers. They had unity. Open a channel to all vessels, Kevin ordered. Human and Council. The channel opened. Thousands of ships waited to hear his words. This is Admiral Brooks. 11 days ago, we showed the Void Harvest that we would not die quietly. Today, we show them that we will not die at all. He paused, looking at the tactical display. For 300 years, humans and Council species lived as strangers. We worked side by side, but never truly together. That ends now. Today, we are one fleet, one people, one future. His voice hardened. The machines coming toward us believe that life is weak. They believe we will break. They believe they can process us into fuel and move on to the next galaxy. He smiled, a fierce expression that held no humor. Let us prove them wrong. All ships, advance. The United Fleet moved forward. Human vessels formed the center, as before. But now Council ships flew in integrated formations instead of separate groups. Kathrani warriors served on human vessels. Human officers commanded Sorrenthi squadrons. Luminari energy shields protected everyone. The Void Harvest met them with everything they had. The battle was brutal. Ships exploded on both sides. Debris filled space so thickly that navigation became nearly impossible. Fighters dueled between the massive warships like insects around giants. Captain Samuel Grant led the assault on the Void Harvest command vessel. It was massive, nearly the size of a small moon, covered in weapons that fired constantly. All batteries, concentrate fire on the central structure, Samuel ordered. That is their brain. We kill it, and the rest go dark. The Resolute pushed through a wall of enemy fire. Shields failed. Armor melted. Crew members died at their stations. But the ship kept moving forward. We are through their outer defense, Ryan reported from the tactical station. Command vessel is in range. Fire everything. The Resolute unleashed its entire arsenal. Missiles, torpedoes, energy beams, everything they had left. Other ships joined the assault. Human and Council vessels fired together, their weapons combining into a stream of destruction that punched straight through the enemy ship's armor. The Void Harvest command vessel shuddered. Internal explosions rippled across its surface. The weapons stopped firing, and then it broke apart. The effect was immediate. Across the battlefield, Void Harvest vessels stopped moving. Their coordination failed. Their attacks became random and confused. Without their central intelligence, they were just machines following broken programs. All ships, press the attack, Kevin ordered. Finish them. The United Fleet swept through the disorganized enemy. Ships that had terrorized the galaxy for millions of years fell silent. The ancient nightmare that had destroyed the architects was ending. It took 6 more hours to destroy the last of the Void Harvest vessels. 6 hours of careful, systematic work. No mercy was shown. No prisoners were taken. The machines that had tried to consume all life were erased from existence. When it was over, Kevin sat in his command chair and stared at the empty tactical display. The red dots were gone. Status report, he said quietly. Enemy fleet destroyed, Ryan replied. No survivors detected. Our losses? Ryan's voice was heavy. 58% of the human fleet. 64% of Council forces. Total casualties estimated at 17 billion individuals. Kevin closed his eyes. 17 billion. The number was too large to comprehend. Families destroyed. Worlds left empty. A generation of warriors gone. But the galaxy survived. Trillions of beings who would never know how close they came to extinction would live their lives in peace. The sacrifice meant something. Captain Amanda Price transmitted from the Crystal Dawn. Admiral, the High Chancellor wishes to speak with you. Kevin opened the channel. Valeth's crystalline face appeared on screen. She looked different somehow. Softer, sadder, but also stronger. Admiral Brooks, she said, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I offer our deepest gratitude. You have saved us all. We saved each other, Kevin replied. Your ships fought bravely. Your people died beside ours. This was a victory for everyone. Valeth nodded slowly. Before today, I did not truly understand humanity. I saw you as tools, workers, servants who should be grateful for our tolerance. I was a fool. You were what your society taught you to be. Yes. And that society was wrong. She straightened, her crystal body glowing brighter. The Council will honor our agreement. More than that, we will change. What happened today has shown us who we truly are and who we need to become. The channel closed. Kevin sat in silence for a long moment, then opened a broadcast to the surviving fleet. All ships, this is Admiral Brooks. The Void Harvest is destroyed. The war is over. We won. He paused, thinking about all those who had not lived to hear those words. Set course for home. We have earned our rest. 1 year later, a memorial was built on Nexera Prime. It was massive, visible from space, a monument to everyone who had died in the war. Human names stood beside Council species names. All equal. All honored. President Catherine Wells attended the dedication ceremony. She stood beside High Chancellor Valeth at the base of the memorial, looking up at the names carved into the crystal. So many, Valeth said softly. So many lost. They knew the risk, Catherine replied. They chose to fight anyway. That is what makes them heroes. Humanity could have stayed hidden. You could have let us die and faced the harvest alone in 4,000 years. Why did you help us? 1. Catherine considered the question. It was the same question Valeth had asked months ago, on the day they accepted the apology. Because that is who we are, she said simply. We do not abandon people in need, even when they have hurt us, even when they do not deserve our help. We believe that everyone deserves a chance. She turned to look at the alien leader. You laughed at us. You mocked us. You denied us. And we saved you anyway. Not for reward. Not for power. Simply because it was the right thing to do. Valeth's crystal body dimmed with shame. We do not deserve such kindness. Perhaps not. But you received it anyway. Catherine smiled, a gentle expression that held no anger. That is the lesson we hope you will remember. Strength means nothing without compassion. Power means nothing without mercy. Being advanced means nothing if you cannot show basic decency to those you consider beneath you. The High Chancellor stood in silence, absorbing the words. We will remember, she finally said. I swear it on this monument. On every name carved here. The Council will never forget what humanity taught us. Good. Catherine looked back at the memorial. Because that is the true victory. Not destroying the void harvest. Not saving the galaxy. The true victory is changing hearts and minds. Building something better from the ashes of something broken. She reached out and touched one of the names carved in crystal. Captain Samuel Grant. He had died in the final assault, his ship destroyed in the moment of victory. Rest well, she whispered. You earned it. Across the galaxy, new alliances formed. Human engineers trained Council species. Council scientists shared their knowledge freely. Ships from a dozen different worlds flew together in integrated fleets. The prejudice did not disappear overnight. Old habits were hard to break. But slowly, generation by generation, things improved. And in the depths of space, on the border between galaxies, human listening posts kept watch. They would continue watching for 4,000 years, ready for any sign that the darkness might return. But for now, there was peace. For now, there was hope. For now, the galaxy remembered what one quiet species had taught them all. True power was never measured by evolution or age. It was measured by the willingness to help those who could not help themselves. It was measured by compassion in the face of cruelty. It was measured by mercy in the face of injustice. It was measured by heart. And humanity had heart enough for everyone. The end. Ute there. Friends she would never see again floated in the darkness. Was it worth it? The Kathrani warrior asked. Lisa thought about the question for a long moment. Ask me when it is over, she finally replied. Ask me when we have won. The warrior clicked his mandibles in what might have been agreement. The first battle was over. But the war was just beginning. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I accept your terms. And I offer something that should have been given long ago. A genuine, complete apology. We are sorry. Truly sorry. Catherine Wells looked at the alien leader for a long moment. Then, she nodded. Apology accepted. Now let us prepare to fight. We have a galaxy to save. The alliance was formed. Human and alien worked together for the first time as genuine partners. Ships began moving toward the border. Weapons were distributed. Battle plans were drawn. The void harvest was coming. But for the first time in 4,000 years, something was ready to meet it. Finally, Samuel spoke again. Transmitting coordinates. Follow them exactly. Any deviation will be considered hostile action. Welcome to human space. High Chancellor. The channel closed. Valeth let out a breath she did not know she was holding. The first step had been taken. But the hardest part was still to come. Yes, they did. Catherine closed her eyes for a long moment. And now billions of innocent people will die if we do nothing. After everything they did to us, Catherine opened her eyes. They held pain, but also something else. Something that made humanity different from every other species in the galaxy. That is exactly why we must help, because that is who we are. The decision was made. But the price of salvation would be high. For everyone. Seen before. Ambassador George Palmer had warned them once. He had stood in that same hall 20 years ago and told them about the void harvest, about the ancient enemy that would return. They had laughed at him too. Now George sat on Earth, watching the Council's desperate messages pile up unanswered. Should we respond? Asked Admiral Kevin Brooks, humanity's top military commander. George shook his head. Not yet. Let them wonder. Let them worry. Let them understand what they have lost. The silence continued. And in that silence, the galaxy began to change.